is Kat and Julie, and we are back for another live class. So we're so excited that we get to do these, and this is sort of our second one this month. We wanted to definitely jump on and show you guys some great stuff. We're going to be talking all about Swarovski fancy stones and lots of fun stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't believe it's almost Christmas.
I know. It's a week and a half, and
I still have some shopping to do.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing this weekend.
Yeah, some people might be getting some quick orders and expedited shipping.
Yes, I think that happens this time of year. We all get so busy, it's just.
Well, and I'm still actually going to be making quite a few gifts, and probably this weekend. Actually, it's sort of the last weekend because next weekend, it'll be Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And, oh my goodness.
I know. So yeah, I think I'll be making too. So it's going to be a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah.
So our last class was the Santa's Workshop, where we did a lot of quick and easy jewelry here at Beadaholique.com, and you can see all those projects still up on the Santa's Workshop product collection on our website, and there you can find links to the supplies if you want to purchase them. Yeah. And this class is quite a shift. This is really almost the opposite
of quick and easy.
Yeah. Not that these are going to be too terribly complicated, but they're going to be a little bit more in depth, and they're really some beautiful sparkly things. We're focusing on Swarovski crystal fancy stones. Mm-hmm. We have quite a lot of them at Beadaholique.com, and we get a lot of questions about how to use them and what do you do with them, and so we really wanted to devote a class to them so we can give you some inspirational design ideas. We're going to be making a bunch of jewelry here, and we're going to be talking about them as well. So if you have any questions, please let us know. This is your chance to ask us questions. We also would love to hear where you're from. Please comment, and different class ideas you want to see in 2018, because every comment enters you to win our giveaway that we're going to be doing live here today.
And let me show you what you could win today. So today, obviously, Julie was saying that we're going to be focusing on our fancy stones here. So we've brought together a lovely collection of some of the things that we're actually going to be talking about today. So I have some beautiful settings and some lovely fancy stones to match. We have beautiful pear, oval, and we have some Rivolis and some lovely settings there as well. We're going to be giving you some beading wire because we're going to be talking a little bit about stringing today, and that's some of the projects that we're going to be doing, so we wanted to give you that. And then we're also giving you one of our exclusive kits. Now this features the rose Montees, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can utilize those in some designs, and you'll actually get a chance to see some of that in our finished kits. So we'll be showing you that a little bit later. But yeah, this giveaway is over $50. This is a wonderful giveaway featuring those Swarovski crystal fancy stones settings and some lovely beading wire in our kits. Yeah. So lots of great stuff.
Yeah, so just the way you enter is leave a comment here on this live broadcast, and then we will choose a winner at the end of it.
Yes.
So I think we should begin first with a little overview of
Let's talk about
a fancy stone.
Yeah, because there's a lot of different varieties, so we just kind of want to get a chance to let you see them in our hands so you can ask questions about what makes a fancy stone a fancy stone.
Yep. Absolutely. Now these are Swarovski crystal. They are beautiful. So if we look at this tray here, we have an assortment of different shapes. You'll see they do come in a variety of shapes, and these are actually just a few of the shapes available. And we have lovely settings that match them. So if I take this big, beautiful pear, which is just gorgeous, I can set it down into that setting, and you see that it fits perfectly. And we're going to be showing you here in just a few moments how you would fold those prongs over. We have a little quick tip on how to do that with a popsicle stick. It's very easy. It doesn't hurt the stone at all. But there is one option for a setting. Now these are by Swarovski, and they are perfectly fitted. Now there's also some tiara cast settings.
Yeah, and these ones are going to be, you're not going to need a prong setting with this, but you're going to actually use a little bit of E6000 as the glue that we recommend.
I have a little tube right here.
Perfect, yeah. So, and these come in tiny tubes and much larger tubes, so if you are setting a whole bunch here. But I did do this little bracelet here, and I just kind of want to take this opportunity to show you that and just how easy and lovely that can be. And the color here is that crystal dark rainbow, so it's kind of that oil slick color. Very, very fun. And these are just in those lovely tiara cast settings. So one of the things I want to point out about the settings, and you'll kind of see this as we talk about some of the different shapes here, if you kind of look at the side of this one, you'll see that it has two holes. And this is what Julie's going to be doing here in just a little bit. She's actually going to be using this as a nice focal to do a strung bracelet. And she's going to do a little bit of a different technique than I'm going to do. We wanted to definitely show you guys as much as possible. But what's really lovely is those nice tiny little holes there help you stabilize that stone for a beautiful strung piece.
Yeah, and maybe this would be a good opportunity, to talk a little bit about the different stones that we see here. We have a Rivoli and we have a Asheton, and this is a very common question we get, is what is the difference between a Rivoli and a Asheton? Now, a Rivoli, if you look at the side profile, it's pointed on both sides. So the top comes to a beautiful point and the back. And you see this is foiled back, which means it has like a matte metallic finish on the back, which really lets you see all the beautiful color as opposed to being transparent. And then the Asheton Kat has right there.
Yeah, so let me I'll show you this in my finger as much as possible. Now, if you've ever seen one of those sort of illustrations of a diamond, this is going to kind of have that sort of side profile, so you can see that it's flatter on the top there, and it has that nice flat facet. So when you do set that into, and we do have little settings for even these Ashetons there, so it's going to have a nice little look like that as opposed to a setting like the Rivoli. So it's just a different way that the stone is cut. That really is the main difference there.
And when you're looking at all these fancy stones, you're going to notice they don't have any holes. So as opposed to a traditional bead, which Swarovski makes a lot of lovely beads where you've got 1 hole or 2 hole, the fancy stones do not have a hole. So you're going to want to set them down into either a setting, like a prong setting, a glue-in setting. Another option is crystal clay, an epoxy clay. So we have a couple examples here. And you could even, and we've done it in the past, use a big stone and set it down into the clay to create a focal. Now, epoxy clay, I have a pack here that's not open, is a 2-part epoxy clay. Now, it's self-hardening. Now, that's important because a lot of people are very familiar with a polymer clay, which is something that you have to bake in the oven. Epoxy clay, you don't have to bake. It just air dries, which is really ideal for setting these stones because you wouldn't want to necessarily put them or this type of setting into the oven. So that's another option. If you don't want to use like a prong setting or glue-in setting, you can use epoxy clay.
And you can see even in the ring that I'm wearing here, so this is the Plum Perfection ring, and this I actually did completely in a video, which is lovely. And you guys can check that out at beadaholique.com, and also be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll be able to see all of our videos there. But you'll notice that the Ashetons are actually quite small, so they can come in really teensy tiny little shapes, or in sizes there. So definitely look at the size. I know sometimes when you're shopping online, a lot of our photos, we want to give you a nice close-up look, but definitely read the descriptions to make sure that you are getting the right size that you want. But this is just kind of how you can really utilize a couple of different colors to create a nice little sparkly design.
And it's so pretty, and that is so quick and easy.
Oh yeah, and you know what? It's really addicting. It's really, really fun. I like using crystal clay.
I do too.
Definitely my first foray sort of into mixed media was with crystal clay, so I kind of became addicted.
Yeah, I love it too, and once you do it, you're going to be like, oh wow, it's
so
really
easy.
is easy, and it hardens to a nice hard cure point, and it does really just grab those crystals and they don't fall out.
Yeah.
So, well, I think I would love to start making something.
Yeah, let's dive right in, because I know you guys probably want to see how to actually set the stone, so I'm going to show you that with the earring that I'm going to create. Now, this is the Moonlight Earring here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a little strung earring, and you can see that I sort of created a little teardrop, and I'm definitely utilizing those 2 holes of my lovely little setting here, and you can just kind of see that side profile there. Again, you can see that those 2 holes are right up against those prongs for a nice seamless look. And they're nice and far apart, so it actually helps to stabilize the stone. All right, so we told you that there was a nice little trick to use a popsicle stick, and this is where that's going to come into place. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my stone right down in there. And what I'm going to do is take that popsicle stick and just sort of hold the top of my stone just so it's nice and secure. And I'm just going to kind of fold it over on that prong there. So I'm just kind of gently pressing, and you can see that I'm kind of using a little rolling motion just to make sure that I'm really getting that stone set in there. So you can just see how easy it is just to sort of bend it over. Now, when you're using a 4-prong setting like this, you don't want to go around the circle because your stone could sort of pop out. So what you're going to do is you're going to go across. So let me kind of rotate here. So I just did this prong, and now I'm going to do this one over here. So this is going to help sort of just squeeze that stone together. And you can just go slow. You don't want to go too hard, too fast. There we go. And now I'm going to go across the way. You can see that I have my 2 prongs there, and now I'm just going to go across. All right. And I just love the look that it gives. It's just a really nice, finished, very boutique look. People will definitely think that you bought this in a lovely store. All right, so now I'm just going to go around one more time and just kind of press down on those little prongs, just making sure they are nice and flush with my stone, because I don't want them to catch on anything. And these are going to be earrings, so I don't know if you've ever pulled your hair out getting it out of an earring, but I sure have. All right. Okay, so now my stone is set and ready to go. So now I can begin with making my strung earring. So I'm going to be using some beading wire for this. And very simple tools here. I just have some flush cutters, so I'm going to cut off about a foot or so there, because you can just see that I'm going to be looping my earring, so that's definitely enough. All right, and now for this one, I'm going to start down at the center by picking up one of these 8mm stones here, and this is a Swarovski round crystal in jet, and I'm going to be utilizing some of these lovely little spacer beads here just to add a little metallic element. Also, this will help sort of tie in the fancy stone setting that I have in that little silver. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of recreate this little pattern here. So now I'm going to add some 6mm to each side. There we go. And again, another one of those little spacer beads, sliding it down. And you can read this full tutorial. I know a lot of people like to see things in videos, but there are a lot of people who like to read them as well. So we do offer a lot of options on our website. All right. And you can just see that this wire is stiff enough that I'm kind of using it as a little needle there.
Yeah, it was just reminding me of like a 2-hole bead weaving type.
A little bit,
where you're
yeah.
working with like 2 needles, where you do the 2-needle, the 2-hole.
Mm-hmm.
But this is so much easier because you don't actually need a needle on it.
Right, and that's one thing, you know, the less kind of hassle that you can go with some of this stuff. And, you know, there's a lot of different sizes of wire. So again, just sort of when you're choosing sizes, just think about the beads that you're going to use, the size hole that you're going to need, and that will definitely help you dictate the size wire and the thickness of the wire. Now, if I were making this a huge necklace, I'd probably want to use something a little thicker just because it's going to need to handle a good amount of weight. All right, so I have my bottom portion here ready to go. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to kind of scooch some of my beads out of the way there so you can see. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 2 holes here and I'm going to thread one all the way through, and let me kind of show you the back here. So it just goes right through that first hole and second hole there. And I'm just going to kind of slide that down a little bit, and I'm going to take my second wire and slide that up through, and making sure it comes down through that hole. So now I can just slide it down and it'll create that nice little teardrop shape. Okay, so what I'm doing here is a little bit of a different variation than the earring that I actually have on my table. And I want to show you another quick variation here, and I'll kind of lay this down for you. So you can just see how you can make, if you want something that's a little bit shorter, you can do less beads. Here I have 3 of those small beads, and here I have 2. So you're really gonna get to just kind of see the scale and the sort of size, but it's all using that same style of fancy stone. So just to kind of show you the lovely options that you can do with that. All right, so now I have my earring here, and I'm just gonna kind of even out my wires at the top. There we go. And I'm going to continue by adding another one of those 4mm beads to each side. And I'm going to see if picking them up will be a little easier now that I'm getting a little further along. So I have metal beads, and then I'm going to pick up another of my 4mm. And you can, like I said, you can just have a lot of fun sort of personalizing this design. If you want something a little bit more dramatic, you can always go with a larger stone. That's always fun to do. All right, so now I'm gonna add one more 4mm onto each side, and then I'm gonna sort of bring these together because I don't want to deal with the two strands because I'm gonna bring it together with one metal bead. So now I'm gonna slip that metal bead onto both of my strands there and slide that down to really create that teardrop shape. Now this is sort of your opportunity to kind of adjust some of those beads and just make sure that they're gonna sit really nicely. And now I'm gonna take a 6mm and slide it onto both of those as well. All right, so you see how it's just kind of come together nice and easy. All right, so now for the fun part. Now we're gonna finish it off, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a crimp tube, I'm gonna slide that down so that it sits just above my bead there. I'm gonna take a closed jump ring. You don't wanna use an open jump ring for this because you want this to be nice and secure. So I have a closed jump ring, and now I'm just gonna take those two ends and loop them back through that crimp, creating a nice little loop where I've caught my jump ring. All right, and what you wanna do is just kind of wiggle it down. Again, just making sure that your ends are even there and that my loops are gonna sit nicely. And now this is where it gets a little tight, but just go ahead and just take your pliers and just, I'm not crimping that tube just yet. Just wanna wiggle it down there. There we go. All right, so now I'm gonna take that tube and I'm gonna set it into my crimpers there. And you can see that it just sits nicely into that little notch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull snug and I'm gonna crimp that crimp tube. And then I'm just gonna rotate it 90 degrees and crimp it down. All right, I'm just giving it a little extra squeeze with those chain nose pliers at the end of my zircons. And now I'm gonna take my flush cutters and just kind of get in there really nice and tight and trim off my wires. Got one and a second one, there we go. There we go. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I am going to set that little crimp. Oops, you know what? I am not happy with that. Let me just fix my wire just a little bit there.
And as you're doing that, we do have a question.
Oh, great.
Olga asks if those earrings are heavy.
Okay, so Olga has asked if the earrings are heavy. And Kat, what do you think? Are those earrings heavy? Would you consider them on the heavier side, or?
I would actually not consider these on the heavy side because when you really see them, and actually here, let me take a second here to put this on. Let me switch out my little earring here. Because that's one thing that I'm always concerned about as well, especially when you're wearing a hook. So it's nice and long, but like I was saying, you can actually adjust the length with a lot of these. So if you just kind of see, let me try to hold it up so you guys can kind of just see a little bit more of the scale there and just sort of how they're different. And honestly, the stone and the setting are not that heavy.
You also have a lot of air in there too. You have the gap, the negative space created by the loop. So it looks like a lot of beads, but there's some gaps.
Yeah, and you can actually just, if you kind of get like a nice shot of the profile of the stone here, you can see that the stone is actually nice and high, but it's not that large of a stone, especially when you kind of see it next to some of the other larger stones that we have, if you just want to kind of take a look at some of the pieces that we were referring to earlier. So it is actually in a nice, lovely scale to be a statement earring, but still very dainty as well.
So very wearable.
Very wearable, yeah. It's gonna be a nice evening piece, but you're gonna wanna adjust it if you are concerned about that by just sort of eliminating some beads if you like, but it's a very wearable piece. All right, so I am just finishing this up here and I'm gonna show you a little trick that I do. So in order to get my little crimp cover there, to cover up that little bead, I'm actually gonna kind of do a little interesting technique. I'm gonna kind of come over the top here, and that way I can anchor it with my fingers and just give it a nice little gentle squeeze to make sure that that comes together nicely, and then I just sort of crimp the back of it. So it's nice and seamless, but that way it gives me a little bit of leverage when I'm creating that. And the very last little piece here is I'm just gonna open my little earring finding. And this is another thing too to keep in mind, that if you are concerned about it being a little heavy, instead of an earring hook, I recommend an earring post. And we have a lot of posts that have some really lovely little backs to them, so you guys can feel nice and secure when you're wearing your earrings. All right, so there are sort of 3 different styles of earrings. So we kind of go from smallest to largest there. But you can just see, even just by not adding that one extra bead, how much smaller this particular one is than the other. So just sort of a 1, 2, 3 kind of different little size scale. So that is how to make that earring. And you can find that full tutorial, and that is at beadaholique.com. And you can also purchase the entire project bundle. And just in case you guys haven't been to beadaholique.com before, if you go to search our project tutorials, you can actually purchase the entire project bundle for 10% off.
Yeah, so a nice little discount.
I was like, it's a nice little discount. So if you're like, I want to make that pair of earrings, you can get all of the stuff, and it's a one-click add to cart, and it's really, really easy.
It is really easy. And then we do also have the option, if you have some of the ingredients already, you can buy the individual components. So we're trying to make it super easy for you.
Yeah, so let's say you already had some jump rings, so you didn't need to buy the jump rings, so you can buy all the other components that you want. Yeah. So it's cool.
All right, well, I think I'm going to jump into my first project, which is a very quick and easy project right here. I'm going to start with this eye fancy stone. So I am going to do a bracelet here in just a minute, but I want to get this guy drying, because by the end of the broadcast here, I want to show it on me. I want to be wearing it, so I want to give it a little extra time to dry. So this is the Swarovski Crystal Eye Fancy Stone. Now we are currently sold out of the blue one, but we'll be getting more soon. But I have the brown and the green, and I'm going to be setting the green one, and you see what that back looks like, it's foiled, into the pendant setting. And so I have a little pendant setting here. It's perfectly sized with that single loop up top. Now I could also choose to make it into a link. Maybe I want to make it into a bracelet. We have been doing a lot of adjustable bracelets lately. That would be a perfect little link to put between 2 lengths of chain. But for this one, I'm going to be doing the pendant, and the settings also are available in silver. So for this particular project, I am just going to set it in with a little bit of my E6000 glue. So you notice there are not the prongs, so you are going to be wanting to use glue for this. Oh, and my glue is sealed. It's a brand new glue. There's a little point on the inside of the top of the cap, so I just puncture it. You'll hear like a little popping sound, and just a little bit of glue on a scrap piece of paper. And for this one, I'm going to start by putting it into the setting itself, and I'm just going to put it down in the middle of the base. And I'm going to spread it out a little bit, but I also know that when I put my stone in there, it's going to push the glue out, and so I don't want it to spill over the sides. So I'm just going to do that. Pop it in and press it down. And that, turn it over briefly, that's what it looks like. And now I'm going to let it dry. Now normally I would let anything with E6000 dry for a full 24 hours, but I'm going to let it dry for the rest of our show here, and then attach it to a pre-made chain with a little 4mm jump ring. So maybe this is a good time to quickly show our giveaway again, and then I'm going to come back and make a bracelet.
Wonderful. All right, so for our giveaway today, so if you haven't joined us before and you're just joining us now, we do a giveaway with each of our live stream classes. So what we're giving you today is, of course, some of the lovely fancy stones and their settings, so you guys can make some of the pieces that we're talking about here today. And we're giving you some just lovely colors, some beautiful stones. We're also going to give you one of our Beadaholique exclusive kits, and this includes all that you need in this kit to make this lovely rose Montee right angle weave bracelet. So just some really fun stuff. So we'll be giving this away, and all you need to do is just leave a comment anywhere here to let us know where you're tuning in from. If you're inspired by any of these, if you have a favorite color of Swarovski crystal, we'd love to hear that as well.
Yeah.
So any comment enters you to win the giveaway. We'll be giving this away live today at the end of our class.
Yep, exactly. So that'll be a lot of fun. In the meantime, I'm going to show you how to make a bracelet. So if we look here, I have this bracelet that I created. And it's using the brown velvet pearls. It's using an octagon fancy stone in a setting, and it's using these 2-hole spike beads. And so that's what it looks like on, and this is the finished piece. And I'm going to be showing you what components I would use. So I'm going to use a setting here that's perfectly matched to fit that octagon stone. I'll set it with a popsicle stick. I'm going to be using some 8mm Swarovski pearls, and you can choose from whatever color you want. We have a wide selection of them. I'm also going to be using some 6mm pearls, these
lovely 2-hole spike beads. And I'm going to be using some crimp beads because I am going to be doing a stringing project with beading wire. And then to add my little extra metal element that we talked about, I'm going to be using some Tiara Cast spacer beads. And these are kind of nice, they're almost like a donut shape. And then finally my crimp bead cover and a clasp. And I'm going to be using an Elegant Elements clasp. And I really like these because a lot of them have a stone already in them. I have a couple others I'm going to pull out here for you to look at. Of course, in different finishes here. So I'm going to be tapering mine down to a single loop. So even though my setting and my spike beads are 2-hole beads, I'm going to bring both my ends of my beading wire over into that single loop and crimp it. But here's a couple other options. You see these are utilizing the 2 strands. So that's another nice thing about these clasps is they have multiple little loops on them. So you can really decide what you want to do. But I do think they look nice with the settings for these fancy stones. All right, so how to make this? We're going to start with some beading wire. And I'm going to take about 15, 16 inches. I actually like having a little bit extra just so I don't end up with too little. And I'm just using my cutter to cut that. Now, if I can grab a popsicle stick, I'm going to set my fancy stone as well. So set it down in there, and you see it actually just fits beautifully. I'm going to do exactly what Kat did. I'm just going to fold over the prongs and going from opposite ends to make sure that that stone does not slip. There we go. And so it is now set. And instead of actually threading my beading wire through one hole and out the other, I'm going to instead loop it around. So it's going to be 1 strand of beading wire per side of the bracelet. So it's really easy to do. You start from the outside, you go in, pull your beading wire, and then just go to the other side. Sometimes it takes a little fishing, but then it'll pop out the other end. And then you end up with no strands across the back. Now the strands are not terribly visible when you do string them across, but I found this technique was really handy for this particular design. So think about how you want to use those holes. There's a lot you can do with them. And for my design here, I'm going to start with a spacer bead, an 8mm bead, a spacer, a 6mm, another spacer, and then I'm going to go through the Swarovski spike bead, and I want to make sure it's facing upright. So you'll notice it has the 2 holes right here. I'm going to go through this side hole and have it come out. Now I can leave it right here and I just have it on my table, or if I wanted to, if I was worried about my beads coming apart, I would use a little bead stopper and just place it right there onto my end so those beads do not fall off. And then I'm going to repeat that same pattern with my other strand. So I've got a spacer bead, one of my larger pearls, another spacer, a smaller pearl, another spacer, and now I'm going to go back into that pretty spike bead and just go through the second hole and have it come out the other side. And then slide it down. So that is the beginning of my design. And now I'm going to put a spacer bead on each strand so I can just pull off my bead stopper. So where my strands exited my spike bead, I'm also going to make sure that my strands are relatively even at this point. So I've got 1 on each side. And now I'm going to feed both strands together through another spacer bead. Okay, and now together they're also going to go through one of the larger pearls. And I just want to kind of push that down, make sure it's laying flat. And I might even trim my ends. I know I have extra beading wire just to make sure that they're even. Makes life just a little bit easier. Now together they're going to go through the larger pearl. Okay, one is through. It can be a little bit tricky to get both through a pearl, but it does work. Hopefully. Let me see. Go from the other end. Sometimes with these pearls, there can be just a little bit of that extra coating kind of in there. So
try
you can
another
kind of
one.
see that, yeah, I was going to say, you can always try a different pearl, but also just kind of by trying to push some of that wire through, you might be sort of catching some of that too and kind of just clearing out the hole.
I also can recommend a needle. You can put a needle through the pearl. That's
yeah,
a good way
of core it, because these are still crystal pearls, so you know they will crack if you try to shove a harsh tool through them. They're not like regular pearls where you could actually use a pearl reamer. But if you are using regular pearls, we do have a video showing you how to use the reamer to just kind of help clear out any gunk that might have gotten in that hole.
Exactly. So you'll see I added another spacer bead, and now I'm going to separate my strands again. And put a little spacer bead on each end. And now I want to go through another spike bead, again paying attention to the orientation of the holes to the top of the bead, because there's a flat back to it and then there's a nice pointed top. I want to make sure that pointed top is facing forward and upright.
And those beads are actually really fun to do some bead weaving with.
Yeah.
Anything that's sort of that two-hole bead, and it gives you that beautiful dimension. They're lovely pieces to work with.
And I like their scale.
You know, yeah, I was going to say it is a really nice little sort of scale, and we do have these same beads in one-hole versions as well, so you can actually utilize them in the same design for a really cool dimension.
That is a nice tip to remember that they are available in both the one and the two holes. All right, so now we've got the spacer bead, and we're going to bring them back together to go through a spacer bead at the same time, and we're going to attempt to go through another pearl here. And then when I get to the end, I'm going to give you a little tip on how you would make this bracelet longer without having to actually purchase any more supplies.
Which is always good. We try to help you guys, let you know how to adjust the beads and the designs as well.
All right, so that one went through just fine. Okay, and you notice I am tightening this as I go because I want these little spacer beads to sit properly. Okay, now we're going to go through another spacer. Okay, so if you see, I'm going to line it up with what I have so far. And now I'm actually, for my purpose of this bracelet, which measures just over 6 inches, I'm going to go ahead and start to finish it off. If you wanted to make it longer, all you would need to do is take more spacer beads and more pearls. And you can either just string them on directly or go ahead and add more of these little guys. You would just have to purchase another package of them, but you could continue this exact pattern or just do spacer bead, pearl, spacer bead, pearl, spacer bead, pearl to make it however long you would like it. I'm also going to open up my clasp right now as well.
And we do have a question.
Would you ever use wire, or beading wire is preferred?
So the question is, would we ever use wire, or is beading wire preferred? I feel that you could use wire. Again, you just have to be aware of the gauge, but I like using beading wire because it is flexible, but it's still nice and strong for something like this. You can't crimp the wire, so you have to use a different finishing technique by either wire wrapping or doing a wrapped wire loop or something like that. You could. Yeah. I like the flexibility of it, and I actually I've been putting some things on over here, by the way. So I've put on, this is done by our designer Rachel, and this is a lovely little piece, and again, this uses that beading wire, and it is nice and flexible. If you wanted to create something that had more of a bangle feel, you could absolutely do that. But I do like the idea that it's a little bit more flexible with the beading wire, but you could definitely explore some fun options using the fancy stones with some wire.
Absolutely. I think for an earring too, that would be really great. You could create some interesting dimension and make it a little stiffer with the wire too, so there's some fun stuff you could do with it.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm going to finish my one side of my bracelet off right here. And so I'm using this little Elegant Elements clasp, and I separated it out. So you see it's got this little tab
that just fits right in there, and at the base of the tab is a little loop. And then we have this side here. So I'm going to feed both wires through a crimp tube right after that last spacer bead. And I'm also going to go ahead and feed them through the loop on one side of my clasp. And then both are going to go back through my crimp tube as well. And I'm going to pull it down. Now here's a little quick tip. You don't want it to be so stiff that it won't move once you want to bend it around your wrist. So we're going to just work with it for a minute, much like what Kat did, until she felt like she had a good amount. So I'm just pulling it. And they're also going to want to allow a little extra space for your crimp cover, because that does add just like a fraction of a millimeter more. Okay. So I like that. It's got some movement. The clasp is not too restricted. It's not too stiff. And I'm going to take my crimping pliers. And they've got 2 notches. They have much like a kidney-shaped notch on one side and almost like a little moon shape. Well, they got the kidney.
Little crescent.
And then the top was much like an oval. And so we're putting in the back notch. And we are going to squeeze. And you see how that really helped to mimic that shape of that crescent moon. And then we're going to fold it over by putting it in the front notch. And so it really almost went like this. It has a nice closure to it. And now we're going to take our chain nose pliers. I like Kat's technique. I want to try that. I really do.
I'm all about stabilizing my work.
I like that a lot. What I tend to do is I take the crimp bead cover and I put it into the chain nose pliers with the open end facing out. And then I just slip it over my crimp bead and I squeeze.
Proof that there's several ways to get it done.
And I could have definitely trimmed my wires first, but I actually forgot to. So
that's okay, you can do it now.
I can do it now. I'm just going to get right in there and trim my wires.
What's nice is those flush cutters do get nice and close.
And then squeeze it. And then, I am having the same problem you had. I have little tails.
Oh!
There you go. There, and nice and close. And that is 1/2 of the bracelet. You see here. And then I would just do the exact same technique for the other half.
That's a nice little technique to kind of loop it through so that you're not having the wire go all the way through to the ends. But you could.
You could. Yeah. You would just have 2 lengths of wire going this way instead of looping it around. So that is this project here.
I like that. And that's such a lovely piece. So,
oh, thank you. So, speaking of lovely pieces.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a completely different thing. We're going to switch topics from stringing, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can do with these in terms of bead embroidery. So I created this nice little piece here, and I just wanted to focus on creating just one little focal, but I have definitely seen pieces, especially when I'm out shopping, there's just big sort of collar pieces, and it's all of these little stones, and they're just all sort of nestled next to each other, and I believe that they are done with a very similar technique to what I'm about to show you here. So I have some Nymo thread here, which is great for bead embroidery. And what I've done is I've added a few little knots here to my end just to secure it to the back. And for today, I'm using a size 12 beading needle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just really quickly how easy it is to secure this to Lacy's Stiff Stuff. Now I've sort of cut a little circle here because I'm going to attach that right on top there. So I'm just going to go ahead and just kind of come up through here and pull it through, making sure that my knot stays on the back. Now what's really nice is that it has 4 little holes here, so I can just position it right next to it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around from the side. So I'm going to take my needle and go up, oops, without catching my finger in it. So I'm going to secure it right to where I need it to be, right there. So now, just judging that distance, I'm going to go and sort of place my needle right on the inside there. You see where my needle is just sort of pointing down? All right, so that's where I need to go through. And I'm just going to pull my thread all the way through to the back side there. Now, take your time with this because you will get caught on those little prongs. All right.
And that is one side there. So now we are attached. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that same sort of crisscross technique there. So now you have to judge a little bit of where you want your needle to come up. So I'm going to kind of start poking through, and I'm just going to come up right there. Pull it through, and I'm going to go into the center. And now again, just kind of going down to secure it. And this is how easy it is to get that fancy stone on there. So now I'm just gonna do my other two sort of really quick. And if you're looking at the design that I've created here, this is the deep blue jewel necklace. And all that is I just, after I secured the setting, I put the stone in there, and then I added 2 rows of bead embroidery around it, and then just added a beaded edge. So it's very simple. And just to get that nice little fringe at the end, when you're adding your beaded edge, all I did was I sewed in some closed jump rings and went back and just added some little chain swags. All right, there we go. And you want to get it as close to the setting as possible when you're sort of sewing it down onto it. Now you can go through and sort of repeat this process, and I definitely recommend that if you are doing a larger stone. If you're using a smaller one, you're probably okay with just sort of once around there. All right, so now you can kind of see just by looking at the top there how it's all secured on the sides. And then if you look on the sides, you're not seeing a lot of that thread. Now I'm using a black thread for this because I wanted to have it show up on camera there. But if you wanted to use a white or a silver or a gray thread, they would disappear just that much more. So that is sort of how you can do something like that. Let me see if, do I have a stone here that fits it? Yes, I do. So that is how that would sort of nestle in there, and then you can create that bead embroidery. So you can just see on here I've used 2 rows of the bead embroidery and a nice little beaded edge to create a lovely little pendant with a little nice little swag to it. So,
and if you don't mind, this might be a good time to show some rose Montees,
yeah,
which are basically fancy little stones that are already in their settings, and we have a couple sizes of them. We have a 4 and a 6 millimeter. And we often get questions about, well, how do you attach these? You look at the back and they have like this little X on them.
Yeah, and you can actually attach these to either bead weaving, which is wonderful, and they fit nicely in the right angle weave. But if you wanted to, let's say I wanted to add one over here for my design. Very simply, you just kind of go through on one side there, and you just go lay it down. Again, you kind of find that right spot that you want your needle to land. Going down, and then it's secured, but I just want to go up through and sort of do a little crisscross there. There we go. And then I can just take my needle and go right through that channel. You can see just how my needle glides right through there. And again, just sort of taking that needle, finding that spot to make it secure. And that is how easy it is to use the rose Montees. And that's actually a nice little sort of quick thing because it has those little channels to it. And I love that they come in 2 different sizes, so you can really just create something that is just gorgeous and crystals and just very, very lovely. And I'm always thinking about that, especially as I'm getting ready for New Year's. You know, it's the time you want to be glitzy and fancy, so fancy stones seem very appropriate for that.
They do. And rose Montees are one of those things that when you haven't worked with them, they seem a little bit intimidating.
They do, yeah.
They're like, what do I do with this? But as we can see, it was really simple.
Oh yeah, and very fast. It's just crisscross. It's great. And these are our lovely right angle weave kits that we have, and these utilize those rose Montees that sit just gorgeous right on top there.
And you're going to win one of them if you win our giveaway here in just a few minutes.
Yes, so let me just kind of remind you guys of the giveaway. So this is a beautiful giveaway featuring lovely Swarovski crystals. We also have one of our rose Montee kits, and you're going to get some beading wire, so we've talked about that. And then you're going to get some stones and some beautiful settings as well.
And I think we're getting pretty close to announcing our winner, so definitely leave your comments and tell us, you know, where you're from, what type of fancy stones you like, what classes you want to see in 2018. So this is a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and as you've seen in the giveaway, we do have some channel charms, so I'm just going to kind of show you some of those beautiful examples here, and they make for beautiful, dainty jewelry. So we did a whole great, lovely class about sort of creating some delicate jewelry, some stacking jewelry. The adjustable clasps work really well for these types of designs. So yeah, so just a lot of fun stuff there.
For sure. All right, one last thing before we announce our winner.
All right.
I'm gonna finish my necklace.
I'm gonna get jeweled up over here because
Okay.
I want to show some pieces.
And I actually put the bracelet on as well. I wanted to show off some too.
We're getting dressed over here.
This is a bracelet featuring the Swarovski crystal cushion stones and their settings and an Elegant Elements clasp. Really easy to do, just traditional stringing method and going to the 2 loops on the clasp. But I like this piece a lot. It looks really, really fancy, but it was very easy to do. All right, let's finish up this little necklace. And this was so easy to do. So I'm just gonna take 2 pairs of pliers. I have a chain nose and a bent nose, and I'm just going to open a jump ring. I have a 4mm jump ring. You could use a 5, you could use a 6. Definitely whatever you maybe have on hand that matches the finish. And we're just gonna loop it over the chain. So in some instances, it's good to go through a chain link, but here I think I'm fine just to go over the whole chain and then link it onto that little loop up top. And this has not really had time to properly dry, so I'm hoping it's gonna be okay. I think it will be. And then I just close up that jump ring by making sure the ends line up. And now I want to put this on. So this is an 18-inch chain. So I'll show you what an 18-inch chain looks like. I think this would be pretty in a lot of different lengths. Even a really long one would be pretty.
Oh yeah, that would be lovely. And just some nice layered pieces.
Is it facing forward?
Yes, it is. I know, we're each other's mirror.
Yeah, so that is the Eye Fancy Stone, and super quick and easy project.
I love that, yeah, and it's really nice, and you can personalize it. So if someone has brown eyes or blue eyes or green eyes.
That could be a really good gift idea.
Yeah. All right, so I've got everything on here. And I would totally wear all this together, just kidding. So I have this lovely earring on, so you can just see how, this is the longest version here, so you can just kind of see where it lays on my neck. I don't have a particularly long neck, but it is sort of that nice elegant drop, you know, in teardrop shape. And then I've put on the choker here. And this is probably something that will come home with me for New Year's. So, and then I have Rachel's lovely Scarletta bracelet here. And then I have that ring on again, just so you guys can kind of see, just again, a little bit of the scale with a lot of those beautiful stones. All right, so thank you for joining us today, you guys. We are going to announce our giveaway winner for today.
All right, and our giveaway winner of all these pretty Swarovski crystal fancy stones, the beading wire, the channel charms, and the kit is Kristen Burns. Congratulations.
Congratulations. And we will be sending this off to you. Go ahead and send us a message and we will, please email service@beadaholique.com and they'll get us your information telling us where to send this beautiful giveaway to you. And we'll ship it off to you.
Absolutely.
So excited. So congratulations, Kristen Burns.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Happy holidays.
Yes, and have a wonderful and safe holiday. We will be back in January. This is our last class for 2017. But again, if you guys have any suggestions, anything that you want to see for new classes, any topics or styles or anything that you want us to cover, leave it in the comments below. We'll still be reading the comments after we are done going live here. So if you're watching this later, be sure to continue to comment. We love reading them. And thank you so much for a wonderful 2017. You guys, you have all been so wonderful and we are so grateful to have you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.